Madam Secretary, first want to thank you for your strong leadership at the Department of Energy. Today I want to talk a little bit with you about the broken and disconnected Texas grid, ERCOT, not just on behalf of Texans, but also because of the national implications of not fixing the Texas grid. I want to start off by thanking you and the Department of Energy for putting millions of dollars towards electric reliability in Texas, including a recent $30 million investment to help keep the lights on in San Antonio, Texas. But we still have a long way to go. We have had so many mass power outages, in fact, hundreds of mass power outages over the last few years in Texas, making us one of the most unreliable electric grids in the country. And most people remember and think about this as it relates to Winter Storm Uri, where over 10 million Texans lost power, hundreds of people died. And in the wake of that storm, you, Madam Secretary, said many things I agree with. You said that interconnecting Texas's grid would be great for Texas. It would be great for Texas to consider connecting to its neighbors. You said that interconnecting Texas could also benefit the rest of the country because in good times, Texas is generating all sorts of clean energy, which we could send those clean ions out from Texas to take advantage of a market that is eager to accept it, and couldn't agree more. That's why I introduced the Connect the Grid Act, which would require Texas to interconnect with its neighbors. My office worked with your department to draft this legislation, and we relied heavily on your excellent transmission needs study, which pinpoints our nation's most significant transmission needs and identifies national interest electric transmission corridors known as NITSEs. Just last week, the Department of Energy announced its preliminary list of NITSEs, a designation that's really important because it unlocks federal financing for transmission. But Texas was missing from your list, and that was confusing to me because you and I agree that interconnecting Texas provides reliability, could save American lives, save tons of money, is an economic winner, and we can't reach our climate goals without interconnecting the grid. That's in part because Texas leads the country in wind generation. We're only second to California in solar generation. An upcoming MIT study finds that between 9 gigawatts and 36 gigawatts of interconnection between Texas and its neighbors could get us a 4% CO2 reduction nationwide and a 33% CO2 reduction in the state of Texas. And so in the next few weeks, I want to send a letter to your department urging you to do everything you can to interconnect the Texas grid, whether that's through funding transmission or through transmission planning and more. And I'm interested from hearing from you, Madam Secretary, if you're considering adding Texas to your final list of NITSE designations, where does Texas fit into your transmission planning?
Great, thanks for that. Thanks for your leadership on this. I think one of the NITSEs covers the panhandle of Texas, but you're right, it does not connect to ERCOT. And I stand by saying, of course, this is Texas's call, and so respect state sovereignty on this. But I do think that, when you consider the ability for a neighboring state to help in a time of crisis, and there's more and more of these extreme weather events that are happening and stressing grids, I think the nation would love that. And similarly, for those developers who are in Texas and who want to take advantage of the economy of clean energy to be able to export that power, I think would be good for Texas too. But that's just me. I'm just the Secretary of Energy. I'm not in Texas, and I'm not running Texas. So I look forward to working with you to see how we might be able to get there. But I do think it would be important to create a national grid that would include Texas at some point.
I appreciate that. And there already are interconnections, some minimal interconnections in and out of Texas. Yeah. And there's actually huge market demand to make further interconnections. It's just oftentimes that the politics has gotten in the way of the state interest and the national interest. And I would argue that this isn't just a Texas issue in that neighboring states badly need the power, and Texas has to be a part of the solution. In the meantime, between here and full interconnection, are there any other actions that DOE could take to enhance grid reliability or that kind of transmission in and out of the state?
Well, grid reliability, yes. We obviously, thanks to Congress, have this Grid Resilience Innovation Program, which we are funding to make sure that all states have the ability to access clean power and upgrade their grids. We're really interested as well in funding things like advanced grid technologies, grid-enhancing technologies like advanced conductoring, dynamic line rating, et cetera, which would make it more efficient for energy to be transmitted across grids. In the connectivity part, though, I would hope that in the next round of NHTSAs, we could have this conversation about actually a firm connection to Texas. But again, we do respect how the state views this, and perhaps things will have changed at that point.
I think that the vast majority of Texans would agree that grid connection and fixing the grid should overcome those sort of smaller level politics. So I appreciate your time, and I yield back.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Ms. Luna from Florida.
Thank you, Chairman. Secretary